So my name is Marek Olszewski. Today we're going to be talking about Celo and building a full-stack cryptocurrency. And I'd like to start with a story today because I think it really helps convey what we're trying to accomplish with Celo. And that story is about someone named Kaburu, whom we met in Nyarugusu refugee camp in western Tanzania when the team went to perform user research upon the invitation of the UN World Food Programme. Now, Kaburu is 47 years old. He's a father, a husband, and a former fisherman from the Democratic Republic of Congo. And he's lived in Nyarugusu for the last 22 years, arriving there in 1998. He was fleeing Congo's second civil war, one of the deadliest conflicts since World War II. And while he has some stability in this refugee camp, there's a lot that prevents him from reaching his full potential. For one, he doesn't have a government-recognized ID, which means he can't open a bank account and he can't access other financial services, such as M-Pesa, one of Tanzania's mobile money providers. He's also forbidden from working in the country, which means that even though he has a smartphone, he doesn't have a reliable way to get paid online, and so he can't work remotely either. Now, Kaburu is not alone, and I'm sure some of you have seen these numbers before. There are 1.7 billion people who are unbanked globally today, and there are 1.1 billion people who are without government-recognized IDs. And so Celo is all about meeting the needs of these people by creating a permissionless open platform that makes financial tools accessible for anyone with a mobile phone. Now, you might be asking, we're hearing a lot of talk about platforms at this conference and throughout this week. What makes Celo different? What makes it unique? And in a word, it's mobile. Everything that we're doing is focused around the mobile experience. And to deliver on that experience, we're taking a full-stack approach. We learned early that we couldn't just build a new piece of infrastructure and hope that people would build great user experiences on top of that. And we learned early that we couldn't build on existing infrastructure. We tried that, and we couldn't get to the experience that Kaburu and others expected. And so we built our own new open platform and a tightly coupled mobile application on top of it. And so for the rest of this talk, I'm going to jump into each of these, starting with the open platform. So when interviewing Kaburu, we learned that to meet his needs, we had to solve some really interesting and difficult technical challenges. Number one, public key-based addresses are simply a non-starter there. They wanted and they expected to be able to send payments to phone numbers, much like is common in East Africa. And like the Tanzanian shilling that they were used to, they expected that the value that they were sending and receiving would remain stable. And this was actually an even bigger request in other markets where we performed user research, such as in Argentina, where access to sound currency is very difficult to come by. Next, they wanted an easy way to pay for these transactions. They didn't want to have to resort to keeping another currency that was volatile and not the one that they were primarily trying to send. And so we worked really hard to address each of these challenges, and we created 3 new innovations. Number one, Celo has a new lightweight identity platform that maps hashes of phone numbers to public keys. This decentralized PKI of sorts allows anyone to easily find each other by phone number and transact securely. Now, each of these entries in this PKI is verified using Celo's phone verification protocol. It's a decentralized new protocol that pairs new users with randomly selected participants on the protocol who send cryptographically signed text messages to those new users, in effect proving that they have access to that phone number. And what gets me really excited about this is it allows anyone with a basic Android phone to participate in running the protocol. If you have access to a phone that can send text messages, you can help power the protocol, and in exchange, you can get rewarded with crypto assets for that work. Number 2, Celo has a new stablecoin platform that allows for creating multiple stable assets that are all backed by the same over-collateralized crypto asset reserve. We're starting with the Celo dollar, but anyone can add new assets through governance after network launch, such as ones pegged to local fiat currency. Now, each of these are ERC20-like, so they're fully programmable, and they can be fully exchanged on decentralized exchanges on the platform, such as a Uniswap-like exchange that's built into the stability protocol. And finally, we worked really, really hard to make it possible to pay for transaction fees in multiple currencies. This means that if Kaburu wants to send a payment in Celo dollars, he can pay for that transaction fee in Celo dollars. This works for ERC20 tokens as well. And this is just immensely, immensely more intuitive and easy to understand than the current status quo. Our next challenge was to build a platform that was scalable enough and fast enough for day-to-day use, and only needed a trickle of data for the censorship-resistant mobile wallet. And so to deliver on that challenge, Celo has a new proof-of-stake protocol that uses stake to elect 100 validators who then perform PBFT-style consensus. If you're familiar with Cosmos and Tendermint, this is very similar, with the one exception that it's been built specifically with lightweight clients operating in data-constrained environments in mind. And so if you're familiar with how Ethereum or Bitcoin works, you're probably familiar with the fact that the light clients there have to download every header from the beginning of the network until current time in order to get the latest Merkle root commitment that they can then use to construct Merkle proofs on any data that they get back from full nodes. Now, this obviously takes a lot of bandwidth, especially for networks that have low latency and thus low block periods and thus lots of blocks. And so to address this, Celo's light client protocol has 3 interesting new concepts. Number 1, Celo uses epoch-based syncing, which means that those validators who are elected in the proof-of-stake protocol can only get elected once per day or once per epoch. And this means that during that period, any light client, assuming they know the current set of validators and they have their public keys, can easily validate any header in any order inside that day window. Now, what this means is that if you wanted to sync from the beginning of time, all you have to do is download the last header of every day or every epoch, plus the most recent header, and that's enough to sync. This is a 17,000 times reduction from downloading all of the headers on Celo's network. Next, Celo uses BLS signature aggregation to aggregate all of those 100 signatures into one single signature per header. This adds another 90% reduction in data, and it makes Celo more scalable so we can add more validators after network launch easily. And finally, since we wanted to do even better than that, Celo uses the new BLS 12377 curve, which is a brand new curve that was only discovered this year that can be efficiently executed as part of a zero-knowledge proof. This means that full nodes can construct zk-snark-based proofs that are succinct and cheap to verify on light clients that prove that a header is part of the chain, simply by executing this light client protocol that I described in an R1CS circuit. Then light clients can download these proofs, which are oftentimes only a few kilobytes in size, and then verify them, and they're off to the races. They're fully synced. Now, this last part is still work in progress, but we are getting very, very close. It's pretty exciting. So what does all of this enable you? What does the end user experience look like? So today, I wanted to show you a demo that I recorded earlier in the day. And it's a demo about me sending $5 to my co-founder, Rene. Just being here reminded me that last year, Web3 did not have free coffee. Kudos on them for having it this year. And it reminded me that I owed him $5 for that coffee that he bought me last year. And as you can see, since I can send the payment to his phone number, it's really easy to find him. And of course, since it's 2019, of course, we support emojis. And since we have fast single block finality, this transaction actually settles really quickly. And so sending a transaction to someone, and this is running a light client that is fully trustless, that was able to sync in only seconds, and the experience is just like what you would expect from a centralized service. Now, some of the users that we interviewed, they asked us, well, how do you send a transaction to someone who doesn't have this app yet? One of the reasons I could find Rene so quickly is because he signed up, he verified his phone number, and he had the entry in the PKI, and it was really easy for me to find him. But what about users who aren't yet on the platform, who haven't installed the app yet? Well, the good news is that Zello supports that too. And here's an example of what that looks like. So I'm going to pay Satoshi back $350 for buying me my Web3 ticket. It's a long story. But as you can see, the flow looks very, very similar to before, with two key differences. Number one, the payment goes not to her wallet address, but to a smart contract escrow that holds the funds until she verifies her phone number. And number two, it ends by creating a text message or a WhatsApp message, pre-populating it so I can send it to her with a link to the Play Store so she can install the app, and an invite code, which I'll get into in a sec. So let's see that. So now, if I were Satoshi and I got such a text, I would click that link, install the app, pick a language, and then type in my phone number. Now you can see on top, it's syncing right now with the network, and it only takes roughly a second or two to get fully synced. Next, we create the private-public key pair, which we encrypt and store in the trusted execution environment of the phone. And now we're redeeming that invite code. And that invite code is really, really interesting. So it's actually a throwaway wallet that we encoded as an invite code. And that wallet has just a few cents that when I sent this transaction to her, I pre-funded so that she can pay for gas required to pay for verification. And we encoded it as an invite code because that's easy for people to understand, and it's using a common idiom. Now she's verifying her phone number. And if this were a centralized service, she would get a single 6-digit code from a centralized text messaging provider. Instead, she's getting paired with a number of randomly selected participants, in this case 3 participants, who each send her different cryptographically signed secret messages. And then the app resubmits them to a smart contract on the protocol to prove that, in fact, she has access to that phone number. So that's verification. On Android, it's actually really quite smooth because we can read the text messages automatically. So it doesn't matter that it's more than one. And finally, she lands on the home screen where the app fetches the funds that are waiting for her in that escrow smart contract. So just imagine how big Bitcoin could have been if you could actually send payments to people before they created a private public key. It's pretty cool, right? So all of these features are live today, and you can actually play around with this on our Alpha Juarez testnet. It's named after a delicious cookie from South America that was introduced to us by one of our community members early on in Argentina. And if you want to play with the app, check out zello.org/app. You'll be presented with this page. You can type in your phone number, and you'll get an invite text that will include that invite code that you can use to pay for gas, to sign up and verify your phone number. It's available for Android today, and we're working on iOS, and it's coming soon. Now, We've only started building our community today, but we're working really, really hard to build it to a point where tomorrow we can deliver for Kaburu and others. And so to that end, we have two special announcements that we're excited to share today. Number one, we're launching our mobile First Sdk. This is an SDK that allows anyone to build a native app for a phone that integrates with the Celo platform. We're really strong believers that dApps should be native apps, and they should be indistinguishable from centralized services that people are used to today on their phones. And so if you want to build such a dApp, you can check out our SDK. We're going to be talking about it tomorrow at a pop-up at 10 a.m. I think it's in the workshop area. And we're also talking about it at DAppCon on Wednesday. And if you're participating in the Ethereum, the ETH Berlin hackathon this weekend, we're also going to be doing a workshop on Saturday. Now, if you can't attend any of those, I highly recommend checking out our docs on docs.celo.org, where we'll share example snippets, an example app, and lots more information. And next, we have a special announcement from one of Celo's earliest community members, Polychain Capital. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to Ben from Polychain.
Thank you, Marek. So about 3 years ago, when I was working at Airbnb, I hosted a fireside chat with Brian Armstrong of Coinbase. And he, even at the time, was talking a lot about this idea that Marek touched on of banking the unbanked, right? Of using basically blockchain technologies and cryptocurrencies to expand access to financial opportunities for members of the developing world or other communities who have been traditionally either underserved by or excluded from the financial infrastructure as it currently exists. So part of the reason that we at Polychain are so excited about what Celo is building is that they are meaningfully working towards and executing on that goal. And that's why I'm also very excited to announce today the launch of the Celo Ecosystem Fund, which will be a Polychain-led venture supported by founding investors Celo and Andreessen Horowitz. This fund will make seed stage deployments to projects and companies internationally who will build decentralized financial tools within the Celo ecosystem. Together, we will help foster the development of a new suite of inclusive financial tools built on Celo's unique technology stack to help build a more accessible and prosperous financial infrastructure in the developing world. So if you're interested to learn more, either about the Ecosystem Fund or about what Celo is building, please come join us on Wednesday at the Spielfield Digital Hub, where myself and Renee from Celo will be discussing the Celo ecosystem, the broad proof-of-stake landscape, and running a workshop to help familiarize this awesome community with building on the Celo tech stack. Thank you very much.
And if you're interested in the event, we have an Eventbrite link. If you want to take a photo of that, you should be able to scan it. And I think we're just at time, so we're probably going to have to take questions outside.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.